Now that you have complete understanding of n8n interface, what options are there in the interface, how do you create a workflow, which button to use, which options to use, it's time to deep dive into the other concepts, starting with nodes. Nodes are the building blocks of n8n workflow, and as I told you previously, an n8n workflow is nothing but a collection of nodes that starts with a trigger node. So the workflow kicks in, the automation begins from the trigger nodes, then it goes series of various nodes to start performing some of the tasks, processing data, and then there is a final action node that completes the workflow. Based on their functions, n8n classifies nodes into 4 different types. The first one is trigger node. I have repeated it many times. This is the one that triggers the workflow, that tells it wake up and start doing its job. Second one is app node or action nodes. These type of nodes add data, remove data, or edit data. These nodes also request data, send data to external systems. They also trigger events in the external applications or systems. Third type of node is core nodes. Although they perform action, but they are different from action nodes in a way that they don't call or integrate with external services. Rather, they make generic API calls, or they perform logic on your data, or they perform scheduling. And the final and fourth type of node is cluster node. Cluster node is kind of a group of nodes working together to achieve a specific functionality. For example, an AI agent node. In this second section of this course, I'm going to leave or put on hold the cluster nodes. I'm going to come back on the topic when we are dealing with AI, integrating with AI services and building AI agents later in the course. But for now, in this lesson, let's deep dive into the other 3 type of nodes that I just explained. So the first type of node is trigger node. It is more like an alarm clock. It wakes up the automation whenever a specific event happens. Triggers in automation starts the workflow whenever something happens. They wait for the events like new emails, form submissions, or file uploads. They can be scheduled as well. For example, running every morning at 8 a.m. or real time whenever a new order is placed. Common trigger examples include a new email arrives in your inbox, a new customer fills out a contact form on your website, a new row is added to Google Sheet, a new Slack message is received. Imagine you are running a business and you want to be notified as soon as a customer submits a form. In this case, form submission is acting as a trigger that lets you know that somebody has submitted a form. And that's where you can start plugging in your other processes that you may have in your business. A trigger node is a special node which is responsible for executing a workflow in response to certain conditions. All the production automation workflows that you are going to build or deploy must have trigger nodes so that these workflows can determine when to execute themselves. The second category is app nodes or core nodes. These nodes filter, modify, transform, or analyze your data before passing it forward in the workflow. For example, a filter node that can check if the data meets certain condition. For example, only process orders which are over $100. The set node adds or modifies data before sending it forward to the next node. There is a code node as well where you can write JavaScript based code or Python based code so that you can have some advanced transformation logic put onto your data. And there is an AI node which uses OpenAI or other GPTs to generate text and process data. The third type of nodes are action or output nodes. These are the final steps which are taken in any kind of automation workflow. These nodes generally send data to external app or complete specific actions. Examples: Google Sheet node updates a spreadsheet. Slack node sends a notification out over there to any kind of team or a person. Email node may send automated responses as email to someone. Similarly, database nodes are there which saves or updates information in a database. In n8n, workflow starts with a trigger, process the data through the nodes, and ends with an action. Alright, now enough of theory. Let's go to our n8n workspace and start building. I'll show you the example of all these types of nodes, how you can drag and drop onto your canvas and start building your workflow. So now I opened up my n8n workspace, which is on cloud. As I have told you, I'm going to use my cloud version throughout the rest of this course. You can see I am currently in n8n course folder of my personal workspace or personal project. I'll click on create new workflow over here. So this will create a workflow. And what we are going to do is I'll click on this add first step. It is going to open up a pane over here where we can select various nodes. So first of all, I'm going to use trigger manually node. So by adding this node, I am telling my workflow that whenever I click on test workflow button over here, the workflow gets triggered. So I'm going to use that as a trigger node for now. Later in the course, we'll talk about more trigger nodes as well. But for now, let's stick with this manual trigger, which is there. I'll name this workflow to something like, you can give a better name, I'm sure. So now this is there. I have saved it. Right now, we just have a single node, which is more like a trigger. In this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what is there in the interface of n8n with respect to nodes as well. So in order to further build our workflow, I need to click on this plus icon. You can see that it opens up what happens next. So whenever I click on test workflow, what should be the next step our workflow should take? So that means I have to add another node as a second step. And what we are going to do to build this example workflow, to build our first workflow, I'm going to use Google Sheet. I'm going to pull data from the Google Sheets, which I have loaded. I have those Google Sheet in my mock data folder over here. You can see this is my Google Drive, and I have 3 sheets over here: n8n beginner course, mock orders data, mock order details data. And what I'm going to do as this example is I'm going to pull the data from mock orders data sheet. So for that, I have to add a node. So like I said, I clicked on this plus node. It is telling me what happens next. So here I'll search Google Sheet. So as you see, I am typing Google. You can see so many different applications from Google or different services from Google where you can integrate your workflow. We are interested in Google Sheets, so I'm going to click on it. And as soon as I click on it, what it is going to show me is what kind of action do I want to perform as a next step. Do I want to create a spreadsheet? I want to delete a spreadsheet? Do I need to append or update rows in sheet? All these actions you can change later as well. But what we are really interested in, getting the data from Google Sheet and then further processing the data as we build our workflow or first workflow later in the lesson. So I'm going to click on get rows in the sheet. So as soon as I click on it, you would see a new UI has been opened. This is the node UI or node configuration UI that you are seeing it for the first time, or you also saw it in the first section of the course where I explained the example of a workflow where we saved the email attachments to Google Drive. So that one we did not build, but this one we are building it from scratch. So you can see that Google Sheets node properties are open. This is where you will configure it. So you can see at the top, credentials to connect with. I have Google Sheets account 2 selected. So what you can do is you can also create new credentials. So in order to explain it further, I'm going to click on it, and it says like OAuth recommended or service account. We are going to talk about these in detail later in the course at how you can create OAuth credential, what it is, what is a service type, what is a service account credential as well. We're going to deep dive into it, how to create Google credentials and other services credential. But for now, let's just take an example. I'm going to build a new one. So it says sign in with Google. So right now I'm using one of my accounts where that information is available on the Google Drive. So I'm going to use that account, select it, and it is going to log in. Now it is asking me that n8n.cloud wants to access your Google account. You need to agree whatever services that it is allowing. You may be seeing some kind of checkboxes. You need to check them and click on continue. And once it is there, the connection, you can see it is saying successful, and then I'm going to close it. And now you can see the account is connected and Google Sheets account 3 new credential has also been created. So now I'll just, cross this out, and you can see now I have 3 credentials over here. So I'm going to select the one that we have newly created. And what we are going to do is the second configuration parameter over here is what it says sheet within a document. So I'm going to fetch the data from a sheet within the document. The operation is get rows. Okay, so you can see that there are more operations as well, but we are interested in getting or fetching the data. So I'm going to select get rows, and from over here it is asking us to select where the document lies. So I'm going to click on it. It says, from a list of documents, choose one. I'm going to choose mock orders data. So you can see I've chosen that particular file that I showed you in my Google Drive. So I have selected this one over here. Now it is asking us which sheet do you want to pick the data from. So I have just one sheet which is like mock or underscore order underscore data. So I'll just select that, and then you can also apply certain filters, but for now let's skip the filters use case. So that you want to like only filter out certain type of rows, you can do that by adding certain filters, but for now I'm just going to skip that. This is the base configuration that is there, and this is how the node is being configured. And you can see that at the middle of the screen you have this parameters or configuration of the node. On the left hand side, whatever left hand side is inputting to the node, so whatever the workflow is on the left hand side, whatever data it is being inputting, it is going to go as an input to this Google Sheets node, and whatever data or whatever action this Google Sheet node is going to perform, which is more like fetching the rows from my Google Sheet, it is going to output on the right hand side of it. So that's how the UI or the interface of node looks like. How do you configure a node? How do you set different properties, different things or actions in a particular node? That's how you do it. As soon as I added it, it opened up by default. But if I close it, I go back to the canvas, for example. Now you can see a new Google Sheets node has been added. If I double click on it, it will open up the same thing. At the top, if you hover over it like Google Sheets, you would see a pencil icon so that you can edit the name of it and make it like more meaningful that you can understand in your workflow. So what I'm going to do over here is get orders data. So I renamed this node that this node is going to perform this kind of action, that it is going to fetch the orders data from a Google Sheet. There is settings as well. You can see always output data. So this is going to always output data. Even if there is no data found, it is going to output an empty string. You can say that it executes once. We are going to talk about what this means. Retry on fail, what happens on an error, whether you should stop the workflow, continue it, continue using the error output. So we are going to talk in detail about all these things later in different sections of this course, but for now these are some of the settings further available for node configuration. But the real thing is this test step. So this is going to allow us, when I click on it, it is going to execute this node and fetch the data. Because there is no input, we are not acting on anything. It is just going to fetch the data from Google Sheets. So when I click on this test step, you can see input is more like when clicking the test workflow. So basically it clicked the test workflow, and after the trigger, the next step was to get the orders data. And you can see over here, it has fetched some data, or in fact it has fetched all 100 items which are there in my sample data file which I created for this course. And the bottom you can see that you can paginate through it, and all the records you can show. You can see you can change the page size as well. I want to view 50 items at a time. I want to view like 10 items, 25 items. You can change it. I can view the data in table format. Whatever data has come, I have JSON format. I can view it in a more readable form in a JSON format. Over here you can see the schema. It is going to tell you what the schema looks like. Schema is more like the structure of the data. It is telling us that it has row number, it has an order ID column, it has a first name, last name, customer email, order status and order date, and it is also showing us what kind of data values are there corresponding to the schema. For now, don't worry if you don't know what is JSON, how the table data is there, what is schema. In the subsequent lesson of this section 2, I'm going to talk in detail how n8n processes data using JSON format or table format, and how it is structured, how you can use it, how you can access it. We're going to talk about it in detail, so don't worry for now. What I can also do is I can even edit this data so that I can change something over here before passing it to the next node. This is very useful when we are debugging it, or when we are want to test out a particular condition. I can right away edit it in the edit output mode and then process the data to the next step. There is another option which says pin data. If I click on it, then I don't need to execute this particular node again and again for rest of the workflow. I can use these 100 items always throughout the rest of the workflow that I'm going to build. So if I click on it, now the data is pinned. and you can see a blue icon has come at the bottom of this node. This means that these 100 items will continue to stay throughout my workflow so that I don't need to execute this node again and fetch the data again. So this was like a more simple example, but there could be complex workflows or complex data fetching that is coming up. You might not want to process that step again and again just to save time. It is not going to cost you because, like we said, n8n is different from other automation tools. n8n does not charge you on step by step or task by task basis. It is going to charge you for the entire execution of the workflow. So over here it is not going to cost you, but it will save time if you pin the data or you edit the data inside the node itself. So this was all about deep dive into the concepts of nodes, what the type of nodes exist in n8n, how you can configure a particular node, what the UI looks like for the configuration of node, how you can fetch data, and how you can connect different nodes. I hope if you are following me along this course, you are getting a hang of building these workflows, and in a while we are going to keep on continuing this particular workflow step by step.